Hi, friends. My name is Kyle Butler, and I'm the pastor here at Mount Zion United Methodist Church. And I'm excited to just share a few minutes with you to kind of just give an update on where we are as a church as we move into this new year and move into 2021. We had a really good tradition before the pandemic of having kind of quarterly, what we call town hall meetings, which was a time when people of the church could gather together and I would give an update on where the church is at. What are some things that we're doing? What can we celebrate? What some things that we're looking forward to in the future? Kind of where have we been and where are we going? As well as update you on some kind of more administrative matters of kind of talking about our budget and just kind of being open and transparent about kind of some of the goings on at the church. And, we haven't just been able to do that since we haven't been able to meet and to get together in the way that we'd like over this past year. So this is, I think, a much overdue update of just where we've come in the past year and where we look to go in the year ahead. I'm filming this update now, and we will be sharing it kind of in multiple ways. But following this, we also want to have a chance for you to give some of your feedback and questions as well. I think that's a really important part of this process is not just me talking, but also you asking questions and sharing some of your thoughts and ideas as well. Since we can't, all kind of sit in a room to have that conversation, we want that to happen in multiple ways. And so after you view this video, I'd invite you to send me an email. That if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you just have something that you're excited to share, I'd really, really love to hear that. And I also hope that sometime soon we can have a Zoom meeting where we can kind of get together virtually and have some space for conversation and questions. I know not everyone loves Zoom and not everyone loves technology. And so that won't be available to everybody, but we will try and record that and make that available as well. And also give you a chance, again, through email, through calling the church, whatever you would like, a chance for you to ask questions that you would like answered, and so therefore we can be in conversation in that way. So I hope to share this update with you, and then we would love to hear back from you as well. A couple things that I want to go over in kind of this update. I want to just kind of review 2020 and especially talk about what we can celebrate that Mount Zion has done as a church over the past year. I want to kind of give just some kind of concrete updates, kind of going over our budget and our finances and just kind of share a little bit of where we're at with that as well. And then I finally want to, kind of talk a little bit about the future and where we might be going and some of those kind of things as we move ahead. I've learned that's a little unpredictable with COVID. Every time we make a prediction, it seems like, it doesn't come true. But I still want to share a little bit about that. So I'd like to recap the past year, talk a little bit about some of our kind of financial matters as well as look ahead to the future. And that's kind of my goal to share with you today. So as we look back at the past year, obviously it's one that didn't go as any of us would expect. We kind of started the year, I think, with a lot of excitement. In early February, we moved to having one service at 10 o'clock. And so we kind of moved our two services together, and I think that kind of started really, really well. It was great to see our sanctuary full with so many faces, and we did some really kind of fun things. I remember our Mission Sunday where we had the principal from Craig come over and speak with us, as well as some of the representatives from the Garden of Eden at the JCC, and we got to pack food after church. I kind of just remember how fun that was. And, now I also remember in January, we had a really big event where we had a potluck dinner, where we had a bounce house in our gym. And I remember all of the kids that were packed in on that day, and how much I wish we had an event like that going on right now that I could bring my kids to. We had a lot of excitement at the start of the year. And then, of course, in mid-March, everything changed. Worship hasn't been able to happen like normal. We've been able to go virtual and kind of gone through all of that. what I'm most excited about, it's hard to say that last year was a good year, because I think all of us wished it would have gone so much better. But there's a lot that I really want to celebrate that we did as a church. And what I'm just proud of more than anything is that our stance as a church has never been to just, let's just wait this out, let's just lie low, let's just, we'll see what happens when this is over and how we can get back to normal. Obviously we want things to get back to normal, but we've never let that hinder the mission of our church. We are a church that's not just here to be in worship. We're a church that's here to serve the community and really be Christ's presence to all of the people around us, the people around this church, the people in St. Louis, the people in our nation, and the people around the world. Like, we come so that we can be Christ for others. And I think that that mission has not stopped in any way. And I'm just proud of the way that we've continued to find new ways to live out that mission in the community. Just one kind of like number, I guess. Numbers don't say everything. But one thing that I think is kind of really exciting is looking in 2020, we increased our missional giving in the year from $11,000 that we spent in 2019 to $15,000 that we spent in 2020. And what that number is that's just the amount of just money that we spent on direct aid to other people and other families in our community and around the world as well. That money was spent on different food programs. So we have partnered with the Parkway Food Pantry. For a long time, we had been packing their meals as part of the Kids Weekend Food Program. When the pandemic hit, they transitioned to providing monthly boxes, and they actually saw the number of families enrolled in that shoot way up. We were packing bags for about 150 kids before the pandemic, and after that, they were packing boxes for as many as 300 to 400 families. And each month, we partnered with them in that. We supplied them different needs that they had. One month we got them a bunch of like hygiene products like shampoo and soaps. We got a bunch of them really cheap from Amazon, and it literally flooded my entire porch when it arrived in early April. Each month we've been providing a different item to distribute to those 400 families. And that money has gone to support that. We've also had members of our church go and help deliver those boxes to families. So some are able to come to the pantry, which is located at Northeast Middle, and pick those up. But others have them delivered to them. And me and about 5 other families, 5 other volunteers here at the church, I think, have gone and done that. I've had a route of about 5 families down in the city that I've been delivering those boxes to each month. So that's just a great way that we've been continuing to help and continuing to impact families. We've been continuing to work with Craig, and so, we had different donations for their food program. And so sometimes, when they were doing their library opened up so kids could kind of do a drive-through checkout of their library books. And we kind of set up a stand outside with them where people could pick up food as part of the Moonlight Meals program. We've also packed a Thanksgiving box and a Christmas box. And so usually the 4th grade class over at Craig would pack a Thanksgiving box that they would give out to families. The 4th graders weren't able to do that this year because it just didn't work with their schedule and how wonky school has been this year. And so we were able to work with them. So the 4th graders helped us collect some food, and we collected some food, and we packed those boxes. And then that worked so well, we did it again for Christmas. And so we packed those for about 25 families each time, and we're excited about that. We also started a Craig Assistance Fund, and this was a kind of pool of money that we created, and we went to the principal at Craig and the social workers there, and we said, if you know any families in need that just have different needs, let us know, and we want to support that. We kind of created this reserve fund in order to do that. That fund has been used for different things. Like, there was one family at Craig that was literally living in their truck, and the social worker was working with them and couldn't find them a home or a place to stay. And so we were able to get them a hotel room for about 3 nights until they could get into a shelter. I remember hearing from the social worker how excited they were to go into a bed and how much like their kids just kind of wolfed down that like continental breakfast thing that hotels have. And now that family, after going through that process, has an apartment of their own, and we're really, really excited about that. We've helped different people who, were going to have a utility shut off over the summer because they lost their job due to COVID. All sorts of different things like that. We've been really able to partner with families and meet pivotal needs through that fund, which was really exciting. And kind of a long-running project here at the church is that we sponsor a sister church over in Mozambique through the Mozambique initiative that our conference works on. And we've continued that partnership. We send about $1,000 a year to support that church over there. And so our missions have a global impact. I'm excited in this year where just everything has been topsy-turvy. We've all been anxious about the future, that we've been able to step up the way that we've given out to other families. And I think what that doesn't even show, that just, dollar amount, that doesn't count all of the canned goods we've been donating, all of the food collections that we've done, all of the meals that we've packed, all of the volunteer hours that we've put in. That's just a pure dollar and cents amount. And so I think this year we really stepped up our missional presence in the community in a year where so much has kind of gone astray, and I'm really, really proud of that. We've also, I think, done a really good job of finding new ways to use our building and use our facility. We have a great building. We have a great church in so many ways here at Mount Zion, but we also have a really great facility. And, it's kind of sad to be in an empty sanctuary, and with COVID, we just haven't had the, groups meeting and the meetings and the coffee hours and all of that kind of stuff that we would normally have. But I didn't want to just, lock the doors and say, we'll just wait to reopen. But it's like, we have this building, what can we do in the meantime? And so we've been able to be really creative in how we've used our building and how we've used our facility in ways that we've reached out. We hosted 2 different blood drives this fall. We hosted one in September, and we hosted another one just before Christmas in December. Through those, we collected about 60 units of blood, which they usually say each unit can potentially save 3 lives. And so that's almost 200 lives that we might, 180 that we might have saved through those blood drives. A big source for the Red Cross, who we were working with, a big source of their blood drive was schools, and going into schools and doing some of these programs. And with the pandemic, that just hasn't been available for them. And so they reached out to us and they said, can you host some more blood drives? We have a desperate need. And we said, sure, let's make that happen. So we were able to do those 2 this fall. We actually have 2 more scheduled, one in March, kind of around spring break time, and another one in June over the summer. And so we're continuing to work with them to meet that critical need in the community. We also, as a parent myself with 2 young kids, I realize how hard it is to do virtual school. And I've been so thankful for kind of the flexibility to have time to work at home and allow our family to deal with that. But I know not every family is in that position. And so our preschool did a really neat thing where they opened up what they call the Remote Learning Center, which was a place for elementary school kids, many of them from Craig across the street, to come to the school and do their virtual learning here. So that parents could continue to go to work or do whatever they need to do. We actually took our entire fellowship hall. We have all those long white tables and things in there. And we spaced all the tables out and everything, and each table was given to a different kid. And we let them really kind of make it their own. We let them come in and decorate it, and some of them could bring different things to their tables. One of our members, Gail Guthrie, did a really nice job of like making pillows and things to give out to those kids so that they could feel special. It was neat to we had about 15 kids that we were able to host in that way. And some of that helped support our preschool and kind of this transitional time, but we also reached out to the social workers at Parkway and said, if you have any kid that you just know needs a spot to go, that you can come and send them here. And we have several kids that we kind of scholarshiped in that way to give them a place to make sure everyone was kind of taken care of in this time. I think that was kind of a really neat thing. And so we've just kind of found different ways to how can we use our building. Like we're not, doing church in a normal way, but what else can we do to reach out to families in our community? And I think it's been really neat to see how that's happened. In some ways, our building has actually been more busy on a daily basis than it had been before the pandemic. And I think that's just kind of really, really cool. And something to celebrate too is that our preschool has been open since August. And as of now, I should probably knock on wood or something, but we haven't had to quarantine a class or anything like that because we haven't had any COVID cases that we've traced to the preschool. So, we put in a lot of safety measures. There's some plexiglass and masks and, all sorts of different things, and it looks a little funny. But all of those safety measures have worked, so we've been able to create a safe environment for kids and their families, and I think that's all kind of just really cool. And finally, I want to celebrate just kind of one of the biggest things I think that we did this year, which was launch our community garden on our property. I think all credit for this goes to Geo Sparks. This was kind of his brainchild and his idea. And I love that he kind of came up with this. We also need to give just a ton of thanks to Myra and her team at the Garden of Eden at the JCC. They've just helped immensely to give us training and they've given us seedlings, they've given us, us all sorts of help in launching our garden. So big thanks to them. But, I really love that Geo kind of started this project. Steve Mifflin has been kind of an important help with the volunteer, and we've had several others. I know like Gail and Ella and some others kind of planted our flower garden as a part of that. That's been really neat to come to life, and we planted that, right around Easter. I think it was Good Friday when that garden went up. And we actually got 3 full harvests out of that, the food that we gave to our community and food that we gave to Loaves and Fishes, a local food pantry. We actually were growing fresh food to give it out, and I think that's really cool. And something else I just want to celebrate about that is I remember when we started talking about the garden, we said, do we have enough volunteers to do it? Do we have enough manpower? Can we actually pull this off? But a neat thing that happened is as we started this garden, it wasn't just church people that were helping, but we also had members of the community and members of the neighborhood coming and working with us. And I think that's important to lift up as maybe a model of the church as we kind of go forward. So there's just all sorts of things that we can celebrate. I also just want to talk about worship. It's been very different, but the ability, I think, and just having the technology to transition to live streaming and being able to do church virtually, I think is something amazing and something that we should celebrate. I remember the first Sunday of pandemic when I came into the church, and it was me and my cell phone, I think, filming the service and doing it that way. And we've done some different things since then. We have a new camera set up. We moved all of our board and technology to the back of the sanctuary. We were able to get a new soundboard and do kind of a new setup there. Part of that came through a grant we got through the conference, which helped churches kind of go live and build that technology. And so we're grateful to them for that. But something kind of neat, I was just kind of running our year-end statistics, which we have to do as a Methodist Church for the conference. And one of the questions was, how many worship attenders have you had? What's your average worship attendance this year? And I'm like, how in the world do you figure that out? But I was kind of going through some of our data on YouTube, where we often live stream, and we also put it on Facebook, our Facebook page as well. And just on YouTube alone, we've had an average, I looked at our average number of views for each service, and I kind of divided that out by views per user, so we're not just having like one person click it 5 times and things like that. But we ended up with having about 90 or 92 was the exact number of average people watching each service, and that's not even just people, that's devices. And so sometimes I know that 2 or 3 people sit and watch a TV together or something like that. So I think we're actually having a kind of a really neat outreach with our virtual worship, and it's actually really possible that we're connecting and reaching out to people that maybe haven't even been in our sanctuary. And I think that's kind of a really neat thing that's been developing. And I'm really excited for us to get back. I very much want us to worship back in our sanctuary together. But I'm excited that even when we get to that point, even once the vaccines are out, even once worship is back to normal, that hopefully we can continue to live stream in the future to make that available to others. And so that's kind of a neat thing that we've been able to develop there. Kind of shifting a little bit, again, there's just so much that we've done, and there's so much that I haven't even mentioned that's happened in 2020. And so it's been a hard year, but so much good has happened in the midst of it. I also want to talk a little bit about kind of some of our financials and just kind of give an update on that. I think the kind of transparency there is just kind of really important. And just as a reminder, our budget or any of our financial information is always available to anyone that would like to see it. If you ever want to send an email to the church that you'd like to know where things stand, and all of our funds come through donations, and I think it's very much what we need to do as a church is to let you know what your money is going to. If you've trusted those funds to us to do God's mission in this community, we need to be accountable to you. That's what it's doing. And so I think that's kind of really, really important, and why I think it's important to share that update. So our kind of big scale overview, our general giving, so just kind of our general giving to our general operations fund last year was around $203,000. And our expenses out of our kind of general fund were about $230,000. And so you might hear that and be like, well, that's not good. Income is less than expense. What's kind of going on there? This year, part of the big, that obviously is a bit of a gap, but a lot of that gap was filled through we applied for a PPP loan, or a payroll protection plan. You may have heard a lot about this. It's been a lot in the news. This was part of the legislation that Congress passed last spring when the pandemic started, as a way to support small businesses and make sure that they, kind of kept paying their employees and kept people on their payrolls. So they granted these loans to small businesses, including nonprofits like churches, as a way to support their payroll. And there's a way that you can apply for forgiveness for that loan so that you don't have to pay it back. So we received one of those loans. We're currently in the process of applying for forgiveness for it, which we expect. And we got a $55,000 loan as a part of that. And that not only went to support the church operation, but that also went to support our preschool as well. And I want to lift that up because, I know there's kind of the politics of all of this, and, we can debate if that should have been passed, or is Congress spending too much money, or, all of that kind of stuff. But I know some of what's been out there about these PPP loans is, you see these multi-million-dollar corporations that got millions of dollars from this, and you're like, why do they need it? In our case, it actually really went to what I think it was intended to, especially with our preschool, where they had to shut down when the pandemic started. We were kind of thinking, we don't have income for our preschool, so, kind of what are we going to do? And so we used that PPP loan to continue to pay our preschool directors and all of our preschool teachers through the end of the school year. So basically, everyone was able to maintain their normal payroll, to act as they were working. And at that point, we invited all of our preschool families. We said, we got this loan. We don't want to charge you to go to preschool since you can't come up here. But if you'd like to donate to the work of the preschool, that would be great. And we got some donations, and we used that to kind of neaten up our playground and some of our facilities. And so that was kind of a really neat thing that could happen. And all of those teachers, they didn't just take that time off, but instead they offered virtual lessons throughout that time in the spring. We put out a weekly craft in one of our bins outside the church. That just allowed us to do a lot of creative things, and so we're kind of really thankful for that. And so with what we kind of received in donations, as well as the support that we got through that PPP loan, we actually finished the year in the black. We finished the year with a positive um, budget, which is always a really, really good thing and something that we want to celebrate. Overall, that's just kind of our general giving. Our overall giving was about 246,000, and that difference includes some giving to our building fund as well as to our mission funds, like I talked about, our Kids Weekend Food Program Fund, our Moonlight Meals Fund. You know, we got some donations to help the garden. Things like that are all included in that. The other thing I'll talk about with that, and again, if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer that. I'd be happy to send out our year-end budget report. Whatever you'd like to know is open information. The other big thing I want to talk about, though, is our building fund, and that used to fund our loan. The church currently has a debt of $435,000 or so, which we incurred as a part of our renovation here at the church that we did a couple years ago. They thought the church needed a little neatening up, and so we kind of did a whole ton of work that brought us our gathering area, that redid floors and carpets and walls and all sorts of things. I was not here at that point, so I can't really describe as much of the before and after. But I can see what the great building that we have now and kind of look back and celebrate that. Our council, our leadership team, has been looking a lot at that amount and kind of brainstorming what we want to do to go forward with that, and how we can really kind of pay off that debt and kind of move forward. I recognize that, kind of in that process, I think there was just some communication gaps. In terms of just, when we did our initial capital campaign, how much that raised and how much we spent on the renovation project. And I think some people thought that, or it might have been communicated that, what we raised and what we were going to spend were about the same amount. And so the idea that we still have all of this debt, I know is kind of a surprise to some that have heard it. And I think there was just some gaps in communication and process. And I'll just be honest, I don't think that process was done as neatly as it could have been. And in some ways, we've tried to put in a lot of procedures to, kind of improve upon that moving forward. But right now we have this debt, and however we got there, it gave us a really great facility kind of moving forward and something that we want to celebrate. But we've kind of really just been envisioning, now that we've basically collected all of the funds from that initial campaign from that project, what do we do going forward? And I really kind of have this vision of how do we not just continue to make the loan payment? Obviously that's important, right? You got to pay your mortgage. How do we not just continue to make that payment, but instead, how do we kind of really proactively embrace our future and kind of create a future for us that can be debt-free? We've done so much work on our budget, and I've been really happy with the ways that we've been able to kind of offer basically a balanced budget each year, and kind of the foundation that could be for moving forward. Several years ago, we had a budget that was very, very much in the red. And so we've been able to really kind of stabilize that and create a process for moving forward. And we've been able to do that without just slashing a ton of programs. We've been able to do that while starting new things, while giving $15,000 at mission work, all of that kind of stuff. We've been able to make a balanced budget go a lot farther for us, and that's just amazing work that we've done. But now the next step is how do we kind of secure that future, get ourselves debt-free, and what could we do if we're not making this mortgage payment? What could we do if instead of having a debt, we have a reserve to think about what new things we could do with our building in the future, or maybe just what fixes will need to come up. Two things that we've talked about and kind of done some brainstorming is talking about having another capital campaign. So basically having a time where we'd ask for support from our congregation to give towards that building fund, in addition to kind of just our general operating work, and kind of to raise some more money to pay down that debt and move towards becoming debt-free. Another thing that we've talked about, and I want to kind of mention this now because I know that this can be a difficult conversation and something we'll have to talk about a bit more. We've also talked about the possibility of whether we want to keep our parsonage, or whether we want to sell that property. That's the house where I and the pastor currently lives. Part of that conversation has been about, could we raise some money and what could we use that money for? Another part of that conversation has been the parsonage has kind of racked up a number of kind of deferred maintenance issues. The HVAC is going to need to be replaced soon. There's a number of kind of utilities, washing machines and things like that that'll need to be replaced soon. There's a lot of maintenance need that's starting to pile up. And it's kind of been a question before us of, as we own a parsonage, it's nice that, we don't have to pay like a housing allowance or something like that to a pastor, but, there is this kind of facility expense, and do we want to be landlords? Is that part of our mission of the church to spend our money on that property, to kind of spend our volunteer hours on that? And so we've just been kind of exploring some different options of like, how much would we get if we sold it? Could we work a housing allowance into our budget? Some different things there. I want to be really clear that before any of that would happen, we would present a lot of information to you about what that would look like. And we would also have to have whole church approval to do that. We'd have to have an all-church meeting where every member could come and have a vote in that process. It would be very much an open thing. It's not something you're going to hear, last month the leadership council met and they did it. It's going to have to be something that the whole church comes together and supports. And so there's much more information to come, and I know many of you will have questions about that, and that's totally legitimate. I just want you to know now that that's just a conversation that's happening in the very early stages. Right now, we're just kind of gathering information that we can present to our leadership team and to our congregation so that we can just share options and see what you all think. And so I would just kind of be curious about what you all think about that and kind of what path might be best for our future. Our hope, though, is really, again, what we're brainstorming, is there's really the possibility. Right now, our loan is a 15-year loan. And so it's going to be something that we're paying off for a while. And we have about a $4,000 a month payment on that, with half of that going to interest. How can we proactively move forward to, I think it's very possible to pay off that loan in 3 years rather than 15. And what possibilities would that open up for the church? If we can get to that place where we continue to run the budget as we have, we continue to see new people coming, and that's great. And so how can that budget continue to grow, and how can we be really secure in being debt-free? Our church is really on the process to really taking some positive steps forward, and I just really want to celebrate all of that work. I know we've had a lot of conversations about money, and a lot, there's just been a lot of work into that. I just want to say we are on track. We're moving forward. There's a lot of possibility there, and so I'm kind of really excited about that. The last thing I want to talk about is just kind of the future and where we might be heading and where we might be going as a church. I think the big question on everyone's mind is, when do we get to come back? When can we come back and worship, and what will that look like? And the quick answer is just, I don't know. It's very hard to predict what that will look like. We've had a few people coming in to worship at different times, and I think they've been doing it safely. Most of our congregation has remained on live stream, and I think that's a good thing as well. But what does it look like for us to come back together? I have a lot of hope in the process of distributing vaccines that's going on now. I know that's not going as fast as many of us would want, but it seems to be moving forward. And so, I keep hoping that maybe this summer that we could really start to move back into a normal worship pattern based on kind of vaccination and safety and that kind of a thing. But we're going to have to see. In the meantime, what I'm excited to think about is ways that we can connect that aren't, even if we can't all come back, it's not safe for us all to come back in a worship space again. What are some other ways that we can continue to connect? So something neat, I think, that happened on Christmas Eve. I wasn't able to do it because I was in quarantine myself. But we posted our virtual service for Christmas Eve, but we also had over 30 people gather on the front steps of the church, wearing masks and keeping apart, but they all lit candles and sang Silent Night together. I'd love to, we also in November had a kind of outdoor concert that we had some people bring their lawn chairs into the parking lot and got to see some faces that way. So I'd love to think, especially maybe as we move into spring, I say this on a very snowy day, as we move into spring, think about ways that we can get together that, perhaps are outdoors, that we can put some safety precautions around, but that we can also see each other's faces. I'd love if on Palm Sunday, even if our worship is virtual, that maybe we can meet somewhere and, walk around waving palm branches. Or maybe even on Easter morning, I'd love to have a space where we could do a worship service, but also have, kind of some time where maybe after the worship we can all meet outside in some way and have some kind of, sing Christ the Lord is risen today, or sing some kind of worship song. I want to keep brainstorming about just other activities we can do, other ways we can see faces, even while we wait for normal to come. I believe that normal is coming. I believe that that's going to happen. I believe that we're on that track, and we want to keep moving that way. But I think there's a lot we can do in the meantime, and I'm excited to continue to brainstorm about that. So I know this is a bit of a long update, but I hope it gave some kind of helpful and useful information. As I said, any questions that you have, please shoot me an email or join us in our Zoom conversation very soon. I'm very lucky to be your pastor and just so proud of the work that we do together as a church. Go in peace.